Right, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing another restoration custom on this Corgi Ford Capri 3 litre. So the car itself isn't in bad shape, original red paintwork, and it's got some pretty horrible wheels. It's probably made around the 80s judging by the font on the bottom of it. Right, so I've drilled it apart off camera. If you want to know how to drill it apart, there is footage of that in my last video. Quite dirty on the inside, as you can see. Chrome interior, which I'm not a fan of really, but I suppose it makes up for the engine being chrome. Glass is in really good shape, just a bit grubby. And then the bodywork in good shape as well. So I'm going to put on these 4-spoke monoblock wheels here. Really suit the type of car. A lot of these Capris had these style of wheels on them. Fortunately, they're slightly bigger than the originals, so they do sort of prevent the car from rolling very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to remove a bit of material from inside the wheel arches. First of all, the sort of underside of the engine bay, there's just a small cutout that I can widen. Use the Dremel to do that. Bit by bit, just take off some material. Plastic's relatively easy to cut through, but you have to be careful not to hold the tool on it too long, otherwise it'll start to melt it. So we're just putting the interior back in the body, test fit the base back onto it. So the fronts are rolling fine, but the rear still need a bit cut out. Well, actually, this is the front here. The engine deck isn't the problem anymore, it's the inside of the fuel arch. So just using the grinder just to remove the material from the edge of the wheel arch. Again, you have to watch with this for it heating up, but this time it's not going to melt it, it's just going to hurt your hand probably if you go at it too much. Now the car's rolling better, and it's time to move on to the next step, which in this case is stripping the paint off of it. So we're going to use the caustic soda method again, similar to the last video. So a bit of boiling water in a sort of heat resistant glass. And then add the caustic soda. And after our rinse under the sink, this is where it leaves us. Some scraps of paint you can see in the bonnet jamb. I put the interior in just after the water cooled down a bit, and that removed all that chrome from the interior. It's a really nice engine actually. It's got loads of good details. Got the air cleaner on it, distributor cap. And now it's time to wire wheel the body. And it's just to remove any of that sort of white frosting that appears on the body shells after they've been in the caustic soda. This is quite a simple process and it does yield quite good results. I suppose if you wanted, you could just leave the car like this in the unpainted finish, because if you get the metal to shine up really well, it can look quite amazing. Alright, just hit the inside of the bonnet there, and that's all the surfaces that should be getting painted. Obviously the spoiler as well, and the rear end. Next step, it's the first time I've done this actually, is adding some door mirrors to the car. So I'm using a 0.5mm drill bit and a pin vise just to cut the holes. That was sped up, that footage. Well, it had already been drilled deep, that was just getting the rest of the hole made. And then after that, I'm going to move on to the other side. I'm using the same material that I normally use for my axles for this, so it's a 0.8mm hole bit requiring, but the 0.5mm drill bit is the one that can actually get through the metal. The 0.8mm one on its own isn't sort of good enough to cut through the die cast metal, so just make the pilot hole with a 0.5mm and then widen out with the 0.8mm afterwards. And you should be able to see the hole now made inside. That's the 0.5mm one. That will be widened out with the 0.8mm. And this is what it looks like after. So I've cut out some little door mirrors out some plastic card. Quite simple. Glued in the rod. Made a flat spot on the door mirror and just glued that on. So it's not the strongest of designs, but it ensures that the actual post won't come out of the side of the door. Moving on to the paintwork, we're going to start by applying a primer to the car body. This is the Tamiya Fine Surface Primer in white. Just make sure the bottoms of the doors and stuff are covered anywhere that will be seen on the finished product. And after that's painted, we can move on to the base. Prime it up as well. I've masked off the bumpers, the grille, and the majority of the underside of the base. It's just the ends that you'll see. I've masked off the black plastic because the bumpers are black plastic, so it represents it quite well. It saves me any extra work later on. And you want to prime this plastic as well so the paint doesn't come out a different shade because of the different base colour. So there you are, just a light coat just to get some good coverage and something for the paint to bite to. Moving on to the main colour. I'm doing this one as the one out of the Professionals television show. So it was silver, so not the most exciting colour scheme, but to make it accurate to the show it'd have to be silver. And for the colour on this one, I'm using the Vallejo metal colour aluminium. Ideally, if you wanted the most surface reflectivity and like sort of metal luster, you put it over a gloss black base coat. But as this is representing silver paint that would have been applied to the car as opposed to real metal, that isn't as important. Just make sure that you get full coverage, because if you don't, there'll be some like white speckles in the paintwork, and I did actually have to go back and give this a second coat. Same applies for the base, just adding silver to those areas that we primed previously. So you can see there I've actually painted in the rear tail lights. And that's the silver. Came out quite well, nice and smooth. The next step is to mask off the stripe on the side. Now on the real car that appeared in Professionals, it was a sort of solid black stripe that faded to silver, but then had a black S at the end. Now the S would be too hard to recreate with masking tape, so I've decided just to opt for the faded black stripe. And this is in line with the bumpers, although it does look squint on the casting when it's done, it does follow the line of where the rear and front bumpers meet. So just getting the base on there to align the tape on properly and burnishing it down. This is Tamiya 10mm masking tape I'm using. And I will put more tape on the sides of the car. I'm just not going to show it so the video doesn't drag out too much. As again, you can see the sort of the orange indicators and headlights and badge I've painted in already. The headlights were Molto liquid chrome silver. The badge was just Tamiya X4, I believe, gloss blue. And the indicators were X34 metallic brown, which does actually look more like an indicator than orange, surprisingly enough. So this is me doing the black fade. So it's just Tamiya XF1, I think, black, and I'm just simply fading it out. There isn't really any technique to it, you just have to sort of go with the flow and hit the front of the car more heavily than the rear, which gives you the faded effect. So now we're just going to paint in the door mirrors. I've already painted in the rear spoiler off camera. And you should be able to see there the faded black stripe. I'm using Revel number 8 matte black for these door mirrors. Thinned with a little bit of water. And just build up the colour in a couple of coats. Next step is door handles. Again, a black plastic piece in a real car, so just hitting it with a fine brush and some of the matte black paint. These door handles are quite prominent, so it wasn't too difficult to get the paint only on them and not spilling out onto the bodywork. Next, moving on to some silver paint. This actually ordered a dry brush on, so getting off most of the paint on the brush. Then got to move to the interior, which has been sprayed in the same black as the stripe. And we're just going to dry brush over the engine. And so you just wipe off most of the silver paint onto a tissue or whatever, and then drag it over the sort of raised surfaces and details, and it should pick them all out and give them a dark metallic sort of hint and highlight the details further. So now we're moving on to the rear number plate, and that's simply going to be in some Tamiya X8 lemon yellow. If you're wondering what colour the taillights are, it's X27 Tamiya clear red and X26 Tamiya clear orange. They were painted in respectively, and that just gives a sort of nice taillight look, like the sort of clear plastic lenses, and it was already over silver, so there was nothing further needed on that. And the original ones didn't have any separation, so it had to be sort of free-handed, so it probably could have come out better if it was more well defined. So now we're moving on to the Molto liquid chrome pen. This is the 1mm size nib on it, and we're just going to colour in the mirrors. This stuff's really good, it's really reflective, it's probably the best chrome that I've ever experienced. I was using the colour I actually used on the bodywork for this for a long time to represent chrome, but these pens are definitely superior, and you can open them up and thin down the ink inside them and spray them. I have used that on some model car bumpers, like 1/24 scale, and it does look really good. It looks like the sort of vacuum metalized chrome. And I would go over the headlights again with this because it didn't come out as well before. So just gonna put the car together again. Again, the glass didn't need much treatment. A little bit of polishing and a clean, and it was good. Interior simply slots in again, painted black. Bit of dry brushing of the silver on the engine. Pop the wheels in. These are again the Monoblock 4-spoke wheels. They do really suit this car. Just use a screwdriver and pop them into the original axle holders that are on the car. And simply snap the base back on. This one probably didn't really need screws in it, but it's always safer to have them in it. Again, if you look at the last video, it was an M2 tap I used in a 1.5mm hole, and then M2 by 4mm pan head screws. And although they don't look as good as the button head ones, the head diameter is a bit bigger, so they hold the bases on a bit better. Having said that though, these holes in the Corgi ones are generally quite small, so you probably could have gotten away with some button head screws. I've coloured the heads in black to try and sort of blend them in a bit better. They were a bit sort of standing out quite a bit, so just to make them less conspicuous, I've coloured the heads into the Sharpie in black. Right, so that wraps up this build. Really enjoyable one, really glad how it came out. Certainly looks better than it did before. The red and the sort of stock looking wheels. Especially like how the tail lights came out. And the door mirrors, they certainly add a lot to the final product. Bonnet on it still opens. It's a bit stickier than it was because I spilt some glue on the hinges when I was putting the door mirrors in, but it improves it because it would just fall down before. So happy accident, I suppose. And this is the model compared to the Corgi Zaxby Capri. This has got the SK70 Fireworks decal package and a scratch built interior on it and custom wheels. So thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.